You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis show, and here on Newsfile we put Ghana first. I've got some of your messages to share with you, and Kofi Adams in Cambridge says, in the UK, says that the drains could be desilted every now and then, but if the citizens continue to throw rubbish into them, then no matter how often the desilting is done, the floods will continue. That is so true. Therefore, in addition to planning and development policy, implementation, as well as law enforcement, there must be attitudinal change by the citizens on disposal of rubbish. In fact, throwing rubbish anywhere is a criminal offense in Ghana. Martin Luther in Laboni says that it's high time certain characters within the NDC were told occupying a party position doesn't warrant reckless and irresponsible comments. Okay, I think there's a comment about something we have not yet discussed, so we can move on. Okay. All right, I'll skip those ones. Same Martin Luther in Laboni says that the perennial flooding in Ghana reflect our very character as Ghanaians, our affinity for impunity. I like that. Our affinity for impunity, wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, knowledge without character, commerce without morality, science without humanity, worship without sacrifice, politics without principle, amazing convictions. This is from Manche Bruce in Takoradi. And whilst we are at that, there's this portion of this book on environmental, international and local perspectives. The first time we're having a comprehensive, write-up book on Ghanaian environmental law, international and national perspectives. And it says something that tells me this situation, if we are not careful, we will live with it for so long. It says the specter of environmental problems that afflict humankind are too visible to miss. Following an interesting discussion on what constitutes the environment, you find the author, that is Mr. Sapong, former director of the Ghana Law School. He outlines some of these environmental problems and situates them in Ghana's context. For example, he knows that originally forest cover was 8.2 million hectares, about 36% of Ghana. This number was reduced by 23% by 1972, by 13.3%. was reduced by 13.3% in 1990 and by 10.2% in 2000. Currently, less than 1.64 million hectares of forest remain. These losses can be attributed to economic policy and so on and so forth. The point is that we don't seem to learn, and we know the problems, but we don't seem to take the necessary measures to tackle them. Now, Sofo Yamuza in Kumbungu says that over the years, politicians have talked and done little. That's what you wanted to say. However, Nana Addo's led MPP government seems to be taking concrete steps aimed at resolving the flooding situation in the country. I am aware that drains are being constructed in flood prone areas like Matayeko, Odorna, 70% complete, and we are still here, and some other areas in Accra. Despite the recent floods that claimed many lives, efforts by Nana Addo-led government is yielding results. For instance, until recently, Accra had experienced over 15 rains that hitherto would have caused more damage to the country. J.B Adams says people must change their obsolete mindset. Obsolete mindset, pa. People build houses in waterways, throwing garbage to the gutters, ought to stop, and littering our environment. Also, there is something called natural disaster, which flooding is part of. that humans can't do anything about. Okay, this shouldn't be taken as political, but as national problems. Benjamin Osei Jamra in Edinburgh says that I am saddened by the yearly flooding in Ghana and the properties and lives that are lost as a result. It is time for all of us to rally behind the government to destroy buildings and structures that sit on water bodies and insist on drains that are covered to prevent people from throwing rubbish in them. It is heartbreaking to see this flooding happening, yet it looks as if we have lost our thinking capacity and can't do anything about them. It is time for all of us to reflect on our lifestyles and make this issue a thing of the past. Right. So Koku's hope and wish that we don't come next year repeating these nice messages anymore. All right. So we have a number of issues to deal with, but since one of our texters decided to broach one of those issues, which we can deal with very briefly and move on, let's look at that. The person who is standing trial for the J.B Danquah murder has made what has been reported as a confession in court and says that persons within the NPP contracted him to kill the late MP. That is his allegation. The NDC has been saying a number of things about this, that there has been some vindication of the NDC in the process. So, Koku, I'll start with you with this. How did you take it when you heard that the suspect has said in court that he was, as it were, contracted by the NPP to do this, even though he's not named anybody yet?
You know what? I actually gave an answer to this question on Randy's program last Thursday. But for the fact that this was said in court, I would have ignored it with contempt. It appears to me to be total rubbish. To me, be honest with you. But
Daniel Asiedu, he's the only suspect standing trial for the murder.
Yeah, but because it was said in court, I'm not going to run away from it. I want it to be handled in a more serious manner, interrogated, so that we can arrive at the truth relative to the so-called confession. But you see, I find something very intriguing with this particular case. It began in those days, an NDC person being targeted. It's not very fair to mention his name, but he was a presidential staffer. And the targeting was done by an MPP, member of parliament, who cast an innuendo at that person, and it went viral on social media. That person was a presidential staffer, once upon a time a journalist, always, of course, once a journalist, always a journalist. So the name went out there. Subsequently, my own Anas, recently, has also been targeted as the one who organized the murder. Now here we are back, NPP as a corporate entity, for now at least, is also being targeted. This is a very interesting case. But you see, because of the history of such things, I remain very skeptical when I hear these things. People have so soon forgotten. There was a guy who was convicted for the serial murder of women. The name is Kwanzaa, or Kpebu Kwanzaa or something like that. People have forgotten that after he had been convicted and condemned to death, prison custody, he came out that he said, well, Mr. Rawlings had said he knew 14 senior cabinet ministers who committed that offense. So if that was the case, he should be released. 2007, this was 2003. 2007, a recorded conversation of the so-called confession of this guy was put on air if you remember, claiming that indeed, in actual fact, it was MPP elements who asked him to commit that offense. We've forgotten that something of that sort happened. See, in prison, some sort of coaching goes on there. You are a lawyer. I'm sure you've handled cases before, especially murder cases. I've been there before. And I've been part of arrangements, people sitting and planning what one should go and see and not to see. It happens. It's a subculture in prison.
I've done only one murder case, though.
Okay. Here we are. So, because of that history, I'm actually very skeptical. People who commit offenses and are arrested and are on trial, and especially when the trial is protracted, and they happen to be in custody, coming and going, they also listen to the news, they read newspapers, they hear all sorts of things. And they have friends there, very organized, professional convicts. They've been there for years. I can tell you some of them are better than lawyers and judges. They know the in and out of the judicial system, of law and things. You'll be amazed. And they coach. But they listen to things going on and then try to weave it into their system. I don't believe this gentleman. I have to be honest with you. This is my instinct.
You believe his lawyer who says he's got something wrong upstairs?
Well, that I can't go that far.
That's his own lawyer saying it.
Yeah, but I won't go that far. Why hasn't he told the court this all the time? Why didn't wasn't the guy subject to some psychiatric examination before the trial? I think these are basics. You can educate me on that.
Then when you talk about an accused person having mental problems and so on, you are leading towards a defense, which is insanity.
Yes, but
to exonerate.
Yes, at what stage?
So some say that may be the game that is being played.
At what stage does that come in? Is it at the High Court stage? Is it at the Circuit Court stage? This boy has been in custody
at the High Court stage
for almost a year or a half. He's been there since 9th or 10th February 2016. Okay, so we've got to check what are the statements that he wrote to the police in the initial stages.
Right.
He says that he was asked to say was the NDC by some MPP people. Did he or did he not? And that the MPP had promised to release him from where he was. Where's the guarantee that the MPP was going to win an election? It's a funny story. Okay, but because of how we have gone about this matter.
Asiedu doesn't think this is a funny story.
Well, first it was pointed at them, at least one person in their camp. That was also complete nonsense. Some of us said so when it was done. Recently, it was pointed at Anas. That was complete rubbish. But there were people in the MPP who were prepared to accept that. Now it's turned against them. They say it's MPP. I think it's rubbish. That's my instinct. It will get nowhere, but it must be subjected to interrogation because of the way we do our politics here, or it can remain a lasting effect, have a lasting effect. We did it with the Yana case. People were accused. Names were mentioned. General Hamidu and Co. He went to court. He won in the court of law. Those who claimed that he had masterminded the murder of Diana could not prove their case. They lost. Okay? We've had many instances. There was a GG executive, Samuel Lenin, in Kumah, Asante region, if you recall. He was also murdered. Also, people raised it. Oh, it was contract killing. The worst of it all, Roko Frimpong.
Right.
You recall? The state itself went to court and claimed that Mr. Roko Frimpong had been murdered on instructions of a senior military officer who was seeking to protect top government officials. Because the deputy managing director of Commercial Bank, front page graphic, murdered on basis of politics because of the redenomination exercise. The state presented this evidence, prosecution's case in court. It fell flat eventually. That's what we've been doing. So when I hear these things, look, unless and until there's something of evidential value to back it, I remain absolutely and eternally skeptical. I don't believe the guy's story. Okay.
Well, let me bring Afenyo in here so that you might give some education in the legal, from the legal perspective. to also assist us going forward in the discussion. I had said that he's the only one standing trial. There are two. There's also one Vincent Boso, yeah, who is also there. But often this guy is heard so often. So what he has said, which is reported by the press as a confession in court, at the stage where they are the circuit court, the district court. He's going to go through the committal processes, and then there'll be the bill of indictment. He'll eventually end up in the high court, where the trial itself will happen. So as it is now, you lawyers will say he's not saying anything on oath. So give some education. What are the implications of what he's saying? Do they have any implications at all?
Well, with my limited understanding of the law, let me say that this cannot, whatever statement this man has made, cannot have evidential value, in the sense that under criminal jurisprudence, and as you rightly put it, at this stage where a bill of indictment is being prepared, committal processes are being, the man is not even in the witness box giving evidence. So I even wonder how he makes these statements, because he's not, prosecution is not leading evidence. There is no cross-examination. He's not testifying by way of evidence in chief. He's not being cross-examined. So within the confines of the law, I don't see how that statement will operate, either as a form of defense or how this would play into the advantage of the prosecution that prosecution may want to rely on. Every crime has its own peculiar ingredient, and how these ingredients are proved do not change. The standard is there. And when it comes to murder, obviously it's not just enough. Recently we had a similar situation in Winneba, and I realized that the police had even left the place where the lady was killed. I told the police commander that go and protect that place, cordon it off. Don't allow people to be walking there, because you will need some information. The blood samples and all that, go there. I mean, the police officer appeared helpless, because when it comes to murder, even when you plead guilty, they would enter a non-guilty plea. Unlike other crimes that you may plead guilty simpliciter, and the judge would record same and say you have been convicted on your own plea. When it comes to murder, it's a different ball game altogether.
If you don't have a lawyer, the state must get you a lawyer before the trial can go on.
But I would rely on aspect of Kpebu Bako's submission, that these people pick information in the media. They know the mood of the state, of the country, and somewhat they know that people are gullible. So let me put something out there. The politicians who play with it, then of course, politicians are getting into this matter, and it's not right. A very respected member of parliament has passed on, a very tragic death, unfortunate situation like that, in his bedroom, somebody getting in there, struggling with him, eventually overpowering him and getting him, off.
Okay, so you have given the education legally about the fact that, first of all, because at this stage, he is not taking any oath.
It cannot be judicial confession.
Yes, so it is useless.
It is not a confession.
All right.
Because under what's a...
So what he is saying will not form part of the trial.
It is not part of the trial.
Because the trial has not started.
Exactly.
But is it possible that the prosecution can take a cue that he's saying something? Maybe we should look into it and then fortify their case.
It is not for prosecution. It's for the investigator to look at it. The man has given a statement. He's changed the statement. Now the question is, has he changed his caution statement? If the caution statement is changed in the presence of an independent witness, in the presence of his counsel, then you can now say that, well, what he said has some evidential value. But even so, it is not enough to say some MPP people engage me. Who are those MPP people? Mention names.
Yeah.
How that was done and all that. And then you give them, they invite them and also interrogate them. So you see, but Samson, we are taking things lightly in this country. Nobody is ready for due process. That's how I see things now. People are ready to just throw anything into the air, and it doesn't help. There is no such confession as known by the law.
All right, but
the man is not even in the witness box.
Because saying prison, a lot of things can go on, these kind of coachings and all. What will be the motivation? Is he being made to think that if he says so in the trial, he could go free? Do you see that can help him anyway?
Like Kpebu said, you know, you're a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. We deal with our clients. I've done a lot of criminal cases, and I've come across people. I can't say much the way Kpebu put it, because I mean, of the benefit I've had, privilege, etc. But people, when they find themselves in that situation, kind of think of all manner of things. I've had situations where accused persons have over-relied on the police, and same has led to their conviction. That they go to the policeman said, oh, what they can say, Mamintro, oh, don't worry, you'll be free if you say it this way. And later on, getting a lawyer, have come to realization that because the police in the witness box will not say that he coached you to say this. But the investigator wants a shortcut. And sometimes they do it with the hope that they will be out. So they
often the coaching is that say you are guilty, and then
yeah. I mean, say so. How did you get by? I mean, there's been a situation where somebody has been convicted of defilement, but the lady was never in court. The lady was never testified, but because the police had told him that okay, with the jitum, and when we get to court, we'll know what to tell the judge. The man wrote a long statement that I had sex with her. This is how it happened. Later, the man said, I never even touched the lady, but I was told by the police officer. But it was late because there was no lawyer in court. The judge said, but you said this, and I recorded you. You are in. Going 50 years.
Interesting.
So it depends on how people perceive some of these coaching and the kind of information they get. If they think it's going to lead to their freedom, they act in a certain manner, but it can be to their detriment.
I don't know if the police...
Which one is this?
This is a Daily Guide, 19th April 2016. MP blows alarm. And it says, it appears there are attempts to conceal the actual faces behind the gruesome murder of the ebullient new patriotic member of parliament, Joseph Boakye Danquah. According to the MP for Boakye East, Edward Enim, he suspects there's an official cover-up of the real perpetrators of the heinous crime. According to the vociferous MP, there's a video recording that appears to show the moment his assailants of the murdered MP left the crime scene. So I don't know if the police took interest in this.
He talked about CCTV, the fact that he had watched it. I think he said on one of your programs. Your programs.
Interesting.
That's what we've been doing.
Well, if these exist, then the prosecution would have them. Now, Isaac, there are people who are saying the NDC is taking this too seriously. You have heard the General Secretary, you have heard the National Organizer, all saying that, suggesting that the guy is to be believed. Why the interest?
Well, if lawyers have limited knowledge today, I don't know what knowledge I would have, but I'll try.
Educated.
You know?
Okay, it's a caveat we always want to say, because you will not know all the law.
Okay.
I'm not like him. Who, when he sees his
we are not learning
politics, he's a professor of economics who want to challenge Dr. CB.
We are not learning.
I'm not like
we are not learning.
Challenging Dr. CB.
You get
professor of economics.
You get him to make comments you won't like. So
you challenge him on the floor.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I don't behave like that. When you have judges,
are you on the 48?
Okay. And there are
is it the case that if somebody is more senior to you in law, you cannot contest what the person says? Or if somebody has a PhD in economics, you cannot contest what he says?
Thank you.
Are you his lawyer?
Thank you. Let's not get into another
because he's been challenging his senior on the floor when he knows his senior has superior knowledge of the real.
That's the question he's asking you.
He knows.
You meet your seniors in court, don't you? you beat them to cases all the time, don't you? You win cases against them, don't you? And that doesn't mean that they are better than you or you are better than them.
If somebody who has
arguing on wrong principles,
academic qualifications in finance or economics,
cannot,
then that's for me.
Randy,
I should walk out of the studio.
Thank you, Alex.
Will I get an opportunity now?
Okay, let's hear you.
He told Dr. Sibia when he knew the premises of his argument was wrong.
Thank you,
challenging him when you knew you were wrong. That's your nature.
That's not a subject.
You knew you were wrong.
Alex, you respect your seniors, but you don't give in to them because you feel they have superior arguments to
Randy,
you.
that's a different matter.
Yes, let's hear you. Let's hear you.
Hey, let me leave this matter. Otherwise, you will quote order 48 now.
Alex, Randy has saved you.
Sorry.
The issue is whether we are taking it serious or not. You see, in this very case, taking several phases. If somebody makes a statement, whether he is doing that under oath, it is of evidential evidence or not. You don't know when it comes to the trial itself what the person would say.
Okay.
And you don't expect me to go into the mind of the person to say what he said is not true. Just as we cannot also prove that what he said is true. So, at this point in time, that is the person who is at the center of it. And he says he was contracted by some people to commit a crime. Who am I to say he's lying? What is my basis? My basis is common sense.
And what's your basis for believing him?
My basis is that I believe what he has said.
Oh, really?
If you don't believe it, that is your cup of tea. And you cannot be challenged why I believe it, because you have no basis to read the mind of the person. And the person has said so.
But you have some basis for believing him.
There is a point in time, if the person retracts from that position, then we can have another conversation. But at this point in time, if the man decides they grant him bail and he goes out there and he decides to say it, must he be on trial to say what he knows?
So the NDC is serious.
Says that you have committed
it doesn't matter. He decides when to say
you have done it.
This is the thing.
So the NDC is serious about inviting the state to take this very seriously and probe into it.
If you are an investigator and you were investigating a case based on a certain angle, and the man at the heart of it gives you indication that you might have left something uncovered, doesn't it make sense to follow up on that lead? You can follow up on that lead to no end, but you would have done your job. But if you didn't, and there was something in there that could have helped you, you would have actually not helped the case.
Done a disservice.
Exactly. So, in my view, whether the person is on trial, he was speaking under oath. In fact, as far as we are concerned, if the man speaks the truth anywhere else, but will go to court and speak the same truth, it makes sense. If you say something,
it doesn't matter that his lawyer says that he has a mental problem.
Yes, but there was there was an examination of the man. Dr. Kwesi or whoever it was has a position on this man. He's had that mental examination. But the fact that you said the man is mentally ill doesn't mean that the court will not engage in processes to establish whether he's mentally ill or not. So it is not for you to tell us. My view is this, and I have heard people say he should name the people. Why? When he gets to the trial, in one vein, he says he's not speaking under oath. In another vein, do you know the limited period within which he said that? And whether he had an opportunity to say it before he was whisked away. The man probably was whisked away when he said MPP. You didn't know how he was immediately taken into the car and ran away from there.
But he still has the opportunity. Those people must be on trial.
If that matter gets to a point where he needs to name people, he will name them. If he fails, then we will now have a conversation that the guy was misleading us. But at this point in time, the opportunity for him to name people, whether the confession he has made is a confession in law, those are matters to be established when the case is heard. But at this point in time, anybody can conjecture anything. But you cannot force me to say that the man, what he's saying is lying. Because I don't know why or what basis I would say he's lying.
Okay.
But he still has an opportunity to establish whether he can prove what he has said or not. If at that point in time he fails, we can have a different conversation. But as we speak today, the fact that we have had history of similar issues doesn't mean that every such case will follow a similar pattern and will end in a similar way. It doesn't really...
Interesting. Let me pick the final comments from Randy, and then we'll take our next break and return to deal with some other rather central issues to do with the economy and the GFA as well. Our court correspondent, who's been following this matter in court, Joseph Akable, says that this gentleman is in the habit of, thrusting his hand up in the courtroom and asking to be allowed to say something. Sometimes the magistrate disallows him. Sometimes, he's allowed to say one thing or the other. And this time, the same thing appeared. So it confirms what you were talking about. He's not on oath yet. The trial has not started. He's not put in the box. He's only sitting in the well of the court, or where the accused person sits. He put up his hand, and the judge asked him, yes, what can I do for you? And he starts speaking. So this is what is going on.
Are we presuming that his lawyer, was not aware of this matter?
We do not even know if
that
his
was
lawyer
a surprise to him.
His lawyer was in court that day. Sometimes they are taken and they are brought to court straight away.
Okay.
And when particularly you are dealing with persons who didn't have to go and hire the lawyers themselves, little work, gets done.
So this might have been a surprise to the lawyer too. This discussion.
Well, I don't know. Yes, yes, Randy.
Something. Let me start this way.
Then this is saying that the state should pay attention and investigate this.
Let me start off this way with a question. When accused persons have psychiatric problems, are they kept in custody like that, and then they come to court every day in the states that they are supposed to be in?
No.
No. Okay. Now, and this is in relation to the lawyer's assertion and the things that we've read Dr. Akosio say is supposed to have said. You understand what I'm saying? Now, you'd realize that this guy makes a statement, and obviously political actors cash on it. Because like Kweku said, when this thing occurred, there are people who also tried to play politics with it and pointed fingers at a particular political party. Now,
an individual in a political party.
Yes, an individual in a political party.
Presidential staff.
And in fact, it happened at the time that a particular political party was in office.
Yes.
So issues of inaction, issues of letting people off the hook and others were against that particular political establishment. Yes. So today, and these were allegations that were not made by the accused person, but by political players themselves who said they had information. Now today you have a situation where the accused person is reported to have said in open court that, the opposite is what happened. Why are you surprised that those who were at the receiving end then are saying that we have been vindicated and go on to suggest that the state should take the matter serious, protect the guy and all that? But this is what we have allowed to happen in this country. And I don't know some of the processes that the police go through with all these things, but there are things that worry me in this country. Look, we have allowed especially political players to engage in allegations without substance, even with respect to cases that are being investigated
and get away,
are also on trial at the courts. Look, all the people who said the things that they said, those who said that it was somebody at the Flagstaff House at the time, did the police invite them for questioning? What did the police establish in terms of those allegations? In other jurisdictions, those things will be made public and would know. Because you see, the consequence of that is that it also speaks to the integrity of those persons. And tomorrow, nobody will take them serious.
Yeah.
Or people will say things they say with a pinch of salt.
Particularly when there was a video circulating about all of these claims.
Yes.
So you know who to invite. The people who are making the comments are there.
So a person makes this comment because the police do not even see it as a basis for their investigation to say, look, come to us. Come and tell us what you know. Let us evaluate your evidence. Let us place some premium or otherwise on it. Let the whole world know that, look, what you said was just hot air. You didn't have anything to it. And so you could not assist the police. And it was just a useless allegation that you had made. They leave it like that. The same person, after a couple of years, now goes to point fingers at another person, forgetting that he himself had said 2 years ago that it was somebody else. Same person. The matter is on trial. The police does not take steps to say, look, we are prosecuting this matter. Since you claim to have information, please come and assist us. There was something interesting that happened.
And maybe, just to assist you briefly,
yes,
on a legal point,
yes,
if the police invite you and they find that you were peddling lies, they ought to be able to deal with you by means of the law, so that people will feel deterred.
And right. Something that is my worry.
That's right.
That if the police were doing this, look, I will not go far. Recently, there were issues of some allegations at Flagstaff House and all that about some people there. And the police were asked to investigate the matter. And people were asked to come and assist the police. Immediately, people started clarifying what they were supposed to have said earlier on. In fact, even currently, this issue of parliamentary privileges and all that, there is clarification of what people claim to have said. And I am saying that if we want to stop this culture, if a member of parliament sits on air and say that I have watched CCTV footages, he mentions a car number, he mentions who is supposed to own a vehicle, he mentions what happened, what the person was wearing, he says he saw it. Did the police speak with the person? Did he provide evidence? Did the police corroborate what he said by virtue of the CCTV?
So you are saying state security is encouraging this impunity to go?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes. Because you would realize that anytime people are subjected to strict proof, their initial story either changes or they run away. But you encourage them to continue on this tangent when you do not subject the issues they say to strict proof. And we are not talking about people who are serial callers, quote and unquote. But you are talking about people who have political addresses, who have some political stature or acumen. And then they come and they speak, and they are sometimes allowed to speak because of who they are.
But what do you say about this? The man, what do you say? The man is often, sorry, the man is often thrown at politicians.
Yes.
Don't you think the people who make these comments, who may be non-political actors or not politicians, feel emboldened that what the politicians are doing, there's nothing wrong with it, so they can also do same?
You are
because as we sit here,
yes,
you read comments about Afenyo. Some of them you can see clearly they are political hot air. You read about, like you last week, you suffered a lot. That he had gone to do the NIA registration and people went to take everything else and put out there. So they feel these people engage in such stuff.
Yeah.
So if we also throw mud at them, we have done no wrong.
You've said it succinctly. Let me tell you something. If you set examples with the so-called big people, the small people, so-called small people will be scared. If you raise the issue of national identification, such a serious issue, why has the police not moved in? Is it not an issue worthy enough of an investigation for the police to establish that, look, these were the people who engaged in it?
Especially as it undermines the NIA project.
I am telling you, because if you look at the statement issued by the NIA and all that, people were pointing fingers at the NIA. It had to do with the integrity of something that the state expects to spend in excess of 1 billion to do. And the state security agencies think that it is no big deal. We can all go and fool around and get away with it.
Professor Tefwa is very mad at it. Should he or his outfit not be the ones reporting this to police?
Must the state agencies allow this to happen? For example, in this allegation against Anas, in this matter that we are talking about, there were people who were saying that, Anas can go to court. The lady in question can go to court and go and sue. But I'm saying that is that issue not an issue which is the subject of an investigation by the police? and the prosecution in the law courts.
That's right.
So if somebody speaks to the effect that I have information of who the perpetrators are, must that not engage the attention of the agencies?
Okay.
You understand the point I'm making?
All right.
And so when we don't do these things and we allow them to fester,
okay,
we encourage that level of impunity, and we will come back and come and say, and this person said that, and this person said that. So people come and they say whatever they want to say, and they say that, oh well, if you are aggrieved, go to court.
Alex, what do you want to say? Randy has a holistic
I agree with him.
To avoid these things.
I agree with you. You know, that has been my position.
Right.
And sometimes people say, I do law, but that is the way to go. You can't choose any other route. To ensure certainty in this country and to safeguard our democracy, forget about our partisan politics. Make sure that you have evidence backing whatever you say.
Right.
Simplicity.
Okay.
Now, the aspect that I disagree is on the expenditure that NIA is expected to spend in excess of $1 billion.
Yes, that's what is reported.
I think they've clarified that. It's not that $1 billion thing.
It's not true.
Please.
If you want us to have a conversation, NIA,
please, that $1 billion thing.
We did that subject last week, and we said the record.
Thank you. If you want us to discuss that later, we'll discuss that.
We take a break.
If you want us to come here one time, let's come here.
Don't worry.